Well, this week, guys, we add a new member to our team as an analyst here on Pro Football Now. He's one of the most accomplished receivers in NFL history, third all-time in receptions with 1,094. He's a 9-time Pro Bowler, the longest tenured player in Raiders history at 16 years, and a future Hall of Famer, if I might add. He joins us from his hometown of Dallas, courtesy of Bodog Football. Roll out the silver and black carpet for the one and only Tim Brown. Welcome to the show, Tim.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you, Ron.
Tim, listen, we know all the accolades. We know that Heisman Trophy is sitting down there in Dallas. We know the storied career. But on this show, we challenge you, Tim. And so we've got a lot of dirt, too. You know, I mean, we talked to Jay Glazer. We got a lot of dirt here, Tim. So if you slip up, we're not afraid to throw it at you. It's a big locker room here.
You can't count anything Jay says you have to throw out the window. Let's do that right now.
All right, that's fair. That's fair, Tim.
Tim, I want to welcome you, really, to Pro Football Now. And my boys out in the West Side, the UCLA Bruins, are going to have a nice little reception for your Irish when you come on the West Side.
Hey, man, that's a couple weeks away, so we may be ready for you guys by the time we get out there.
You better be.
That's October 6th. Oh, by the way, we have to revisit that one as Tim will be joining us here on the show in the weeks to come. All right, let's get into the meat and potatoes of what's going on in the NFL. Particularly, and I mentioned at the top, talking about some changes around the league. Maybe the most notable, if not the most notable, is the quarterback change in Chicago. It seemed to be a long time coming. You go back to last season, people were saying you got to replace Rex Grossman. Lovie Smith finally has done that when it became clear, Baldy, that there were some issues related to this starting quarterback that the Bears were not going to overcome, it seemed to me, in the short term. The changes made to go to Brian Griese.
Well, I think after 26 games of a career with Rex Grossman, they had to make the change because they couldn't live with the bad plays. But I just think that when you go to Brian Griese, you're basically going to Rex too. I mean, it's more of the same. I mean, that's really been Brian Griese's career. And what's followed him is a lot of bad plays. I mean, smart guy, accurate thrower, but he hasn't been able to get out of his way of some bad plays, too. So it'll be interesting. I'm doing the game this weekend in Detroit. All eyes will be on Brian Griese. So this is his fourth team. It's not like, you know, it's his first stop in this league. He's been through a few now already. So we'll see how he handles it and if he can eliminate the bad plays that Rex was guilty of.
Tim, let me ask you, how tough is it being a receiver on a team when your quarterback is struggling? Now, most of the noise about Grossman was coming from the outside, at least that we heard. But internally, there had to be some of that among his teammates who weren't sure what they were going to get on a weekly basis from this quarterback.
Yeah, without a doubt. I'm sure the guys, you know, Muhsin, Muhammad, and Barron, they're professionals, so they're trying not to be public about their frustrations. But, you know, as a receiver, you know, if your quarterback is struggling, it doesn't matter what you're doing out there. You're not going to be able to get anything done, you know. Brian, I'm going to disagree with you a little bit, man. I happened to spend a little time down in Tampa with Brian Griese, and I was in the huddle with him a couple of times, and I found him to be a guy who is quite capable of getting the job done. He would have been the quarterback down there. If you remember, he injured his knee, and that was the only reason why he lost that job down there. So I think this guy is quite capable of getting it done. I think it's going to make a tremendous difference for the Chicago Bears.
Well, Tim, you know, as a world-class receiver, I thought Muhammad robbed his quarterback on that first in route that he didn't finish the route. I thought the ball was placed right in the right spot. But it's the coordination of your receivers and your offensive line. I granted Rex was erratic, but they allowed him to be erratic. Bigger problem, guys, no running game.
Well, I think that, going back, Tim, I do know that, you know, Brian was 5-1 when he was a starter when you were down there that last year in Tampa before he got injured. So he did get off to a good start, but he also had thrown 7 interceptions, one costly one that cost him a game during that stretch of being 5-1. I just think that when you talk about his teammates, I think a lot of the rumblings came from the defensive side of the ball. The last thing you want on a team that is dominant on one side of the ball is any rumblings. And I think defensively, where they struggled in the second half of the game on Sunday, I think that you couldn't ignore it. You can't keep marching a guy out there that his team doesn't believe gives him the best chance to win. I think that's why Lovie had to make this move.
You know, you're exactly right. You know, I think the situation you get in, you know, I've been on a couple teams in my career where we've had a dominant offense and our defense is struggling. There's been one DB who was getting burnt time and time again. But, you know, you get to the point where you really start to get on the coaches for putting that guy in that situation, giving him some help. And I think that was the thing that I got to with the Bears. Ron Turner should know better than to put good recs in certain situations, but it seems like they just kept throwing him out there and throwing him in the fire and putting him in the toughest situations possible. And I know this is NFL, he should be able to, but obviously the kid needed a little bit more growing. And maybe this time away, you know, off the field, he'll be able to grow up a little bit.
All right, fellas, we're going to switch gears and look at perhaps a team that is the class of the NFC. It's certainly early, but the Dallas Cowboys are out of the gates really fast. And Tim, you're there in Dallas, your hometown. So let me ask you this: as we look at this thing 3 weeks going on 4 weeks into the season, are the Cowboys the team to beat to this point in the NFC? Are they the class of the conference?
Well, I think you certainly have to give them that. You know, for them to go up to Chicago and beat those guys so handily, you know, everybody was thinking that they would be back along with New Orleans, you know, and both of those teams have struggled. But, you know, the Cowboys are playing great. You know, I have not been a big Tony Romo fan until last Sunday night. I think the show that he put on was incredible. His ability to keep plays alive with his feet and to get the ball out in such an accurate manner was incredible to me. And T.O. played great. You know, the defense is, you know, I don't think they're really being challenged right now. And, you know, they've given up a lot of yards this year. But, you know, I thought Romo proved that he is one of the elite quarterbacks in his league, not just a drop-back quarterback, but a guy who can really get done. And at this point, I think the Cowboys, they are the team to beat in the NFC.
We're going to take a look at the big O in Big D, because Dallas has, as Tim pointed out, the offense has been outstanding. We saw the defense come out and look a little shaky, or pretty shaky, in that Giants game to open the season. But you can see they rank first in the NFL in points per game, about 38, maybe 39 points a game, just under 39. Fifth in both rushing yards and total yards. And Romo's completing 58%. He has 8 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Doc, your opinion on Tony Romo? You got to see him there in Landover late last season in that game that went haywire at the end with Washington won. Tim said he's becoming a believer. How do you see Romo at this stage of the game? Still a young quarterback, but an accomplished one in a short period of time.
Well, I see him as acrobatic. I mean, the guy, his ability to slide, and I think Tim nailed it. Slide and still keep his accuracy. He's done an incredible job. But I think Jason Garrett has done even a better job. He calls the game like a quarterback who's actually playing in the game. He doesn't use the computer printout. He watches his guy dominate you, and you can't stop it, and they continue to do it until the game's over. So I think the way they're calling the plays also supports it. He has 2 dominant guys in Witten and Terrell Owens. And nobody in the league so far has been able to stop either guy.
Hey, guys, I know I speak for everybody when I say, as we say so long to Tim for this week, welcome to the huddle, buddy. It's good to have you.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Looking forward to it.
All right, for more of Tim Brown's insights and analysis, you can visit bodogfootball.net. Tim Brown will join us each week here on Pro Football Now. Our thanks to him for stepping in this week. We step aside now for the first time on this show.